She had problems with the dogs.
Who's got green grass in their yard? I raked it the other day and now I have green. It's like, you've been hiding.
Mhm.
Oh, so you have a.
That's the secret.
Rake is a 4-letter word. No, I don't do it. Maybe I should.
Well, I saw that you had this huge lake that your kids were in kayaks.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh,
Lake Keller for about 1.5 weeks.
Did you post this on
Smaller than
our,
last year.
that
page-
was amazing.
on our
It
page?
usually connects the
On
front
your
yard to the
full page?
backyard.
Yeah.
And no, this year.
No,
it's
this is
smaller.
Oh,
Jacobson.
Jacobson, okay.
Didn't affect your foundation at all, I think.
No, it sloughs away. Like we don't have any dry, like we're completely dry.
Jacobson,
They did a very good job at.
should this be put on our page?
I just put that on there because I thought that was an interesting article about dealing with road rage, and especially if we have that increased trucking at coming up starting sometime next year.
Right. That's what I'm
Something to
saying.
be
Should
talking
we
about.
not put this on our page?
That would be up to Madam Clerk if she would like to do that.
Madam Clerk, do you think this would be wise to put on our page? Because I think it's not only just because of the drivers, but we also have graduation. And kids are being excited about new life and change of life from not being in high school anymore. The parties thing going on for the next week at least.
Yep. Okay.
I think this would be good.
Madam Clerk, are we back? We will go ahead and continue with our report from our Public Services Director.
And were there any other questions about the combined heat and power project proposal?
I just had a question. Is this a healthy point right now with the project that anything the new with the project is presented to the council or in an email, like a weekly basis? So this is much more in depth as far as information about the whole project that I thought that I had a feeling that something was going on behind the scenes. But I think as a council and as a city, it's at that point, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's healthy enough for us to know about it as a community and also to get the excitement up of some of these changes. What are your thoughts?
I'm very comfortable with that. I think that's a great idea, and I don't think that's a problem at all, because we are and to let you know, before, again, there was a very in-depth analysis was done by a significant number of organizations, entities, and if you look on the sheet that I have provided, again, it shows all the stakeholders. North Pole has assumed lead for this effort because that's really what it needed. It needed a project manager. The mayor is, again, the one who's taken on the burden of herding the cats, and we're helping him, and I'm helping him with that. So I think an update, certainly we can provide an update, tell what's going on. That's not a problem at all, and I think that's appropriate this time.
I think in addition to even just providing us with updates, putting some of this information on our website, just so that people can start hearing about it, reading about it. It doesn't come as a surprise. We can start just kind of building that level of interest. And I think until something really, dirt gets turning over, do people start waking up to something happening? It'd be nice to get this out ahead of that, to say, this is a project that we are applying funds for. These are the benefits that we anticipate from it, and just promoting it. It would certainly put us on the map for being innovative and providing a source of not only electricity, but heat and other sources of energy to help our community. So
I think being a little proactive too, and then if this project is going to cost $80 million now and maybe a little bit more, the taxpayers are going to ask, where is this coming from? Why is the city putting this in? And if we can already earmark, like, no, it's coming from this grant, because, we don't want that much money from the city going to this, and then, list off the benefits. But yeah, if we could, certainly, I think if we could take a proactive account or step towards that. I think that'll help put out a lot of fires. I wasn't gonna go there, but
I will.
you did.
Well, we've been talking about it for over a year, and this is the first time I really have something to read and sink my teeth into. So I think that it's timely and valuable, and let's get it out there.
Good. Awesome. Thank you, Danny.
The second ongoing project, and upfront, this is something that internally city services is planning to fund. We're previously in 2016, there was a strategic plan that was done by
Agnew and Beck.
Agnew Beck. Yes, I was going to say Shelley Wade, but she's a part of Agnew Beck. But they did a strategic plan for the city, and again, strategic plans mean different things to different people. From my perspective, a strategic plan is your road that goes forward. If your decisions are within the left and right lanes of your road, then that's good and they're aligned with the strategic plan. If your decisions are outside the boundaries of that plan, you really need to think hard about whether or not those are in the best interest of your organization. So what Agnew Beck came back to us and they proposed for $5,000, they proposed to do a review of our progress on the 2016. And again, the 2016 to 2021, it was a 5-year strategic plan review of the city's progress on that, sort of a scorecard of how we've done, and then also some suggestions on a way forward. We're not committed to doing a strategic plan. And again, strategic plans generally cost between $150,000 to $300,000 to do a good one for a city. It's done by an outside organization, but they've agreed to do this for about $5,000 to look. It'll be about a 4 to 6 month effort. They'll provide a report back to us, and again, it'll help us determine what we need as far as our vision for the future for the city of North Pole. I think it's money well spent. And again, in talking to the mayor, he really did want this to go out to the council more. Again, it's something we can we could make the choice to spend the money, but we did want to inform the council that this is what we'd like to do. And again, as we've talked about before, there was some additional money that was put in for professional services. And because our infrastructure is so important for the future of the city, this aligns well with the future of that infrastructure. And so funding it within that category makes a lot of sense. So I'd like to present this to the council as an ongoing project, but also to inform you of what we're doing as far as for future planning.
Could we make sure that we get a copy of that findings report from?
Certainly, yeah.
And do we have copies of the 2016, 2021 plan that we could look at? I don't think. Oh, it's in the budget? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could just get copies of those for our group, since a lot of us are new on council, so we have an idea of what was the plan in the past, and when we get this report, it'll probably be more meaningful for us to be able to look to see where we're at, and as we are doing things in the next few months, if we are within that plan parameter. All right. And would that be sent out electronically or?
I'll probably send
Okay.
it out to you guys.
Try to do it so it's not, so it's less than 10 megabytes. That seems to be the cutoff for things getting through people's email accounts. Maybe do it in stages if it's a big document. Sorry.
I don't have anything else unless there's questions.
No, thank you very much, Danny. All right, that moves us on to our next item of business, which is under new business A, our merit and renewal decision points. You'll see that in your packet on page 30. It is a sheet that has yellow orange stripes on it. Looks like this. We've had a previous presentation on it, and we were supposed to do some thinking and get back with some decision points.
Yep, and Amy's on with us.
All right, we'll go ahead and let you pick up where we left off from last time.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to join this evening. Before I dive into the decision points, I thought that we could, I know that we had the conversation. There was obviously a lot of information to digest at that workshop on the 1st. So I thought I'd start with just maybe any initial questions that you may have to address. Otherwise, I'll dive into each of the decision points and we can go from there. Okay, well, with that, I'll just dive on into the decision point. So we have 10 overarching decision points. Some of them have multiple subcomponents where others have singular. So this is surrounding the benefits that risk consulting works with the city of North Pole on. And the first one is Meritain. And so Meritain is the administrator of the medical, dental, and vision. And that's where we do all the different plan designs and all the different plan components. And so that's going to be all of the decision points under number 1. And so 1A is the acceptance of Meritain's administration renewal at proposed fees. This is a slight increase of 2%, which is approximately $768 annually. And all of these numbers are based on current enrollments, which is 40 employees. And so these numbers annualized can go up or down based on those enrollments, but City of North Pole has been very stable in that 40 enrollment count. And so it's a slight increase of $1.60 PEPM on those administration fees. So relatively nominal and minor increase on the overall administration from Meritain themselves. And they are an organization that processes the claims. It's where we get the Aetna network discounts, making sure that providers are paid and all the documents are within compliance and provided to the city and employees. Sub-item 1B. And so all of these, the remaining of these sub-items, there are a few programs that I am recommending that the city discontinue. If you take into consideration and want to move forward with my recommendations that I have worked with Ellen and Melissa and Trisha on, we've talked about this, and the mayor as well, and they're in agreement of these as well. It would be a 6% reduction to these fees. The first one being RX Smart Savings. This currently costs the city $1.50 PEPM. And it has not resulted in any savings since its installation in 2021. This is behind the scenes. It would not impact employees, but it would save the city $1.50 PEPM. So it's one of those programs that it typically only makes sense if it's going to save dollars behind the scenes, and the way it does that is through different processing. And it just hasn't done so for the city. So that's the first program that I'm recommending that is discontinued. The second program is the Healthy Merits program. This is something that, in talking with the team at the city, that is being recommended to also discontinue. We added this last year. It has a lot of wonderful, wonderful components if there's the ability to really invest time. And there has from just internal discussions, there's been other priorities that has been needed to be taken by the team. And so at this point in time, considering that as a $4.50 per employee, so PEPM is per employee per month cost, we're recommending that that is also an additional component that we discontinue at this time. The next item is biometric screening. This is something that you can discontinue, but we've recommended that this one is one to maintain at least for another year, and this can be done without pairing it with the Healthy Merits program. And what this is a blood draw for any members on the plan, and this allows them to get their biometric screenings. And then there's a couple components within the biometric screening. If this is something that the council would like to maintain, that there'd be some other components to discuss. So I guess with that, until we get into the 1E, within this, the 1D, does the council have any questions on the biometric screening itself, or is in favor of continuing the recommendation of maintaining, or would you prefer to discontinue this program?
Well, Mrs. Welch has a question.
Oh,
So-
absolutely.
So the $190 per participant, is that something the city pays whether they use it or not?
No, that is only for the participants that participate in the lab draw.
And how many did that last year?
So last year, let me pull up that number for us. We had. So at the actual event itself, there was only 7. There were additional employees that participated outside and had their lab sent in. But to be honest, I think the newness of the team, I personally was on maternity, so I wasn't able to really help with that engagement at the city level and really help drive that. I think that we can really increase the participation coming out of COVID and having more of almost like a wellness week. And one of our suggestions that we're going to put in place is I will be there on the 7th. We have 2 employee meetings already scheduled, working with Ellen and Melissa. And we're going to have the sign-up sheets there available during those employee meetings. So people can sign up at that meeting as they're being educated on the new plan benefits. And Ellen and Melissa, now being on board, are also engaged and able to help facilitate those additional items. Now, if it doesn't result in a positive response, it's not a negative cost to the city because there is no cost if they don't participate, but at least we can kind of give it another good faith effort in providing this that's been asked for in the past. And if we still don't have the turnout, then we can say we did our best efforts and then we won't move forward with it for 2024.
So if we do not accept the Healthy Merit program, which you suggest not to do,
Mhm.
then it would be $120, $220 per person.
Correct. Only for those that participate. So the 450 is guaranteed regardless of how much of that Healthy Merits platform and program that you use. So that's a pretty substantial amount annually to not be utilized, where the $30 savings, I don't think necessarily outweighs discontinuing that portion, but maintaining the biometric screening.
And you did say the biometric screening could be added in later under another part of the program, you said?
So if you wanted to create an incentive for employees, say an employee is not able to participate on the onsite, they can have their provider or go to the lab to indirectly. So it's submitted so they get the credit based on whatever incentives the city wants to include. So for example, if you wanted to do the Alaska Airlines giveaway, just by encouraging people to participate in the program, then they could still be put in for that potential reward for participating in the screening.
My question to you then is, you said 7 participated. In order for this to be favorable out of 40, what are you hoping to accomplish? Are we wanting all 40? Or are you wanting half?
That would be great to have all 40. Now, this also gets extended to spouses and dependents 18 or older. So that increases our population exposure as well. And so I would love to see us get to 15 to 20. And if we can get more than that, great. But that is a really successful minimum with having a nurse come on site and meeting with employees. So we have the scalability. I think we just need to do our work on the front end of getting the word out to employees so that they are aware of the timing and being able to sign up.
So the recommendation is to discontinue both 1C and 1D right now with this renewal, but it's something that this is something that we can go back and revisit later on.
My recommendation would be to discontinue 1C, but maintain 1D. But
Okay.
you can absolutely discontinue both and revisit both at a later time.
If I'm understanding, this is Mrs. Clark. If I understand you correctly, you're saying B and C is what you're making the recommendation to discontinue. And then
Correct.
we keep D and do the barometrics. and then it's 190 per.
220.
220.
If you discontinue.
Oh, so if we're discontinuing D,
It's continuing.
We're
C,
continuing
okay.
with one boy, one cat. We're discontinuing one boy, one cat, and keeping one dog.
right? But if we do that, I was under the impression for the way I'm reading it, and tell me if I'm wrong, which I think my other buddy over here is telling me I am, that at that point, C is what's driving the price for being 220 as opposed to 190.
Right, but if you look at how much that 1B is costing us, that $30 is not, that $30 savings does not reach the 720 on a meaningful level, so we're still losing money by paying a higher price.
Okay, I got you.
All right. So on those items, do you want us to make a decision to say discontinue, keep? Or how do you want us to let you know what our position is?
That would be great if you want to do that at this point as we go through, and then and if it would be helpful, I can share my screen and put in the notes. That way, if that's helpful and you guys can see my screen, or you can maintain it on your screen, whichever you think would be most desirable.
I would suggest
with
you
not a
share your
bigger
screen.
Yeah, share your screen. Okay, yeah.
I'm just kind of curious also as far as what is the benefit for the city for us to do the biometric screening? You would think that that would be something the doctor would require if they saw a doctor for something that they would do. And that would be as a doctor's recommendation or whatever. I know that when I go have my physical or complain about some kind of problem, they tell me, or they draw the blood and they do whatever it is that's necessary, not just willy-nilly hit 20 different things or whatever is on that biometric screening. So what, I mean, so we are spending $220 per person who may not have any issues, who may not have any reasons to otherwise get something like that. Am I wrong in saying it doesn't absolutely have to have a benefit to the city or our insurance program as such?
So this is meant as a preventative. So the situation you're referring to is if you have symptoms, and a lot of illnesses don't until it's further down and further progressed. And ideally, every one of your employees, dependents, spouses would get a preventative screening or a preventative panel. The reality is a lot of people don't. If they don't have a regular doctor, because they're not typically sick, they're not getting those annual physicals, those annual biometric screenings and panels done to catch those things early. So and employees still absolutely have their ability to, if they have that already in place and they already have that behavior, then that's great. That's fantastic. They will still have that access point. This just allows additional access points for those employees that might not have a regular physician. They are healthy, so they don't have a doctor, but they would like to get that preventative panel, because that ultimately would save the city to catch it sooner. So if they're not doing those regular annual visits, which a lot of people don't, then that's going to prolong and increase their risk of future more costly illnesses.
20 is only if they take advantage of it. So if we have 40 employees and only 10 participate, that's 10 times 220, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the decision is delete 1B, 1C, keep 1D. Is there any opposition to that on the council? Hearing none, that's a decision maker, and that decision has been made.
Perfect. So with the maintaining of 1D or one dog, then there's a couple subset items. 1D1, so the subset of including payroll deduction, incentive, or surcharge, This I really am putting out there as a discussion point to think about for next year. I'm not necessarily I'm not recommending that you do this year, though you could. So if you wanted to truly drive the behavior, there's a carrot or a stick approach. And this could be approached in either way, where you can, if you want to really drive behaviors and make every employee participate, you can say, if you don't participate in this screening, whether on-site or secondary, you're going to pay more. Because statistically, if an employee or a member does not obtain their preventative screening, they're going to likely cost the plan more in the future. So we're really trying to increase those behaviors to get those regular annual preventative visits that are the cheapest to the city, as well as the cheapest from a health perspective. On the opposite end, you can say you can give them a discount, or you can give them a surcharge. And you can, so if you wanted to impact the plan and those behaviors in that way, that's one way to do it. Like I said, I'm not necessarily recommending it this year, considering we're really trying to drive participation and drive the behaviors. I think maybe I just wanted to introduce this as a thought in case you did feel strongly on one of these options or not, of including this from a cost perspective.
So we don't have to make a decision on 1D1, 1D2, or 1D3 for this renewal, correct?
1D1, no, and then also 1D2. This was something that I believe, and I apologize. Is Trisha still in the room? Or did she?
Yes.
I believe that this amount is still within, so this was a recommendation from her to do, and my understanding was this was something that we're going to use as a carrot that is not necessarily needing a board council approval. It's just something that we're going to be doing to help incentivize from a carrot perspective, because there's a fair amount within. But definitely correct me, Melissa or Trisha, if that is an inaccurate statement.
Sure, we'd be using City Alaska Airline miles as a kind of like a drawing for those who sign up for this program. They get their name put in for Alaska Airline miles from the city.
Yes, several years ago, we had a health fair and we really sold it to the employees. We had stations up here at City Hall, and we offered 3 gifts to put in for a drawing. And so one of them was airline miles. Of course, the last few years, nobody traveled, and now we have a lot of airline miles. And so we could offer that easily. But we usually offer it expiring in a year. So whoever wins it has to take the trip in a year.
And so if they went to one of the public health fairs that the state puts on, would that be the same thing as this biometric screening when you have your comprehensive blood tests there?
Yeah, I don't know how we would know who took it and who didn't do it if it was at a health fair.
Usually at the health fair, you're supposed to come back with a slip. So
Oh, okay.
with the slip, they
Okay.
can come back with the measurement of their high blood pressure.
Okay.
They can come back with something saying they had the shot, a flu shot or whatever.
Okay.
So it depends on what you're doing.
Right. It was just an idea thrown out there. We could get it honed in, say, okay, this
Mhm.
October is the month to do it. Anybody that goes in October puts in, we do something for them.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to incentivize people to do that, and I would encourage them to go to the different health fairs, because you can get a lot of things very cheaply done there. And again, if they want to be eligible, they just have to bring in proof of whatever the committee decides will qualify as proof of attendance, whether it's their blood screening results
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah, because it would be a blood screen results from out of Anchorage.
Mm.
And with that would be your documentation to show. It'll also show if they did a PCS for cancer for guys. Okay. Vitamin
Prostate.
D,
Yes, I.
yeah, PSA. Or vitamin D screening as well.
We all need that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like the way that this has come together for you guys. Your incentives would be very highly appreciated from the staff's perspective. The other thing is usually for the health fair, it's usually just husband and spouse. But if you guys are including the children under 18 or above 18, however that number is coming into play. That would
18
be-
or older, just because of PHI and HIPAA.
Okay, then that would be a plus as well, because they would be between, this would help keep down the doctor bill. Okay, as far as you going to the clinic, because you guys are going to be presenting the information to the family. And as you said, some people will not go to a doctor. Some people feel that they are really healthy. I don't need a doctor. More so males. Females are more apt to try to go. Yeah, I saw that ad. And I think that would be wisely done. So if you can make that incentive happen for those three, I think you would possibly be good. I would run it past your fire department because you have more males in there. Just as a throwing it out there.
Yeah, we haven't quite ironed it all out yet. It was just
Mhm.
a suggestion.
I know,
And so we'll have to do that and
yeah,
we'll
but
get back with it.
to do the
Okay.
poll on
Yeah.
it, I think
Yeah.
that would help.
And how many miles you think you're like,
How much are you
How-
giving away?
like how many miles are you giving away?
Decided that.
Okay.
They haven't decided that
Okay.
part. Look at her, she's just turning red.
We're trying to pick the employment of a future infant. That's basically what we're doing, right?
All right, so jumping down to 1D3, I think it is. Allow buy-up options at employee's expense, must elect and pay at time of registration.
So this was a question that was asked during the workshop is, we have the base package, but then there's a fair amount of add-ons that can be either added in entirety or per employee. And so I sought clarity on that. And so employees, there's a pretty extensive list from the base package that's included in the screenings. But if employees wanted to get additional components or different screenings that are not included, they can add that on at the time of registration and pay immediately for that to be taken as well.
We would just be offering that, but they would choose what they want to pay for additional. Okay, I think that's
Correct.
fine.
That definitely does make sense, because if you have somebody who has something else in their history, the family history or whatever, they can probably add those screening. It's a pretty extensive list on that.
Correct. Yeah, so it's showing here. So this is what's included. And then here's the buy-up options.
I'm surprised they don't, up here, they don't do vitamin C automatically.
Your vitamin D, because it's a federal, it's one of those things that everyone in Alaska is deficient. It's just how much are you deficient? And unfortunately, it's not part of the preventative panel.
All right.
So the city could make it such. If you wanted to include that as a covered lab, you absolutely could.
What would that do to our price if would it go up by what they would pay, or?
So if you wanted to include it, we could add vitamin D to anyone that participates. So it would be $265 instead of $220.
They don't give you a break if you make that as a part of the whole thing then. All right.
I think we should just leave it where they could select it on their own at 1D3
Yeah.
rather than making that a mandatory for all folks.
Mhm.
All right, then 1E. Was there any changes, or we're going from current 75 down to 70 to 120? What does that mean?
So this was the one, this is Livongo. So this is currently, it's a relatively newer program, and what the city currently has in place is it treats just diabetes. So and currently there's nobody participating, though you only pay if someone participates. So these are the kinds of programs that I like, because you're not just paying to have it, you're only paying if people participate. Since we installed this last year, Livongo has expanded to a program called Whole Person. And so this expands to not only address individuals that are diabetic, but it addresses pre-diabetes as well as hypertension. So that expands the population significantly. So depending on what type of program that individual fits into between those three components, the price varies from 70 to 120, depending on if they have hypertension, diabetes, or they're pre-diabetic.
And we would only pay that if the employee has that condition, that would be the charge back to the city.
Correct,
Or-
if they participate. So if they're identified as that type of diagnosis or they fit that criteria, they're reached out to by Livongo. If they accept and want to join the program, then that's when the city pays is charged the program fee. If the employee chooses not to participate because they're under another, different provider's guidance, then they're not, the city's not billed for that.
Okay, Mrs. Welch?
So I think we had a little bit of that discussion when we had our thing the
Mhm.
other day on our workshop. To me, again, going back in after the mayor made us aware of that, is that they are running by some very outdated standards. The fact that they want you charge you $167 for a replacement glucometer, you can get those for free almost any day of the, as long as you have a prescription for the pens that you stick yourself with and the little strips that go with it, they give you the meter for free. So it's pretty, doesn't absolutely make any sense at all. And the fact that they are going by finger sticks instead of going by a measured, a monitor like that, and there's no real it just seems like it's outdated equipment and outdated methods that they're using. I would definitely say that it's not, we should not do that at all, offer it at all. I don't think that is.
Right now, we have no one participating in it. We're just saying that if they were to choose to, this would be the out of pocket or out of city coffers.
I have spoken to these guys when they called, try to get my husband involved with it. And to me, it sounded like it was more a money grab than it was truly. And if they expanded to even further out into people being pre-diabetic and stuff, from what I have seen, it's not a very good system. I would definitely say we don't vote for that. I'll not stand behind that one particularly.
So is this a decision point that we would remove 1E? Is that an option that we're looking at or not?
Absolutely. If you want to discontinue this program altogether, absolutely. And nobody would be impacted at this point since nobody's participating.
Mrs. Clack's view on this is, even though it may be outdated, my father used that and then he slowly moved up to the newer program. When you first find out that you're a diabetic, depending on your doctor and depending on how much you're making, you may not be having too much to come out of pocket if you were to do it on a different spectrum. So right now we don't have anybody. I would think we would still keep it for a year and then maybe drop it the following year is my thought, because we're beginning to bring on new people. The other variable is most of everybody that's here is borderline in age. So it could be something that you discover here in that year, and then there's no program, and then you have to pay more out of pocket to get this under control.
And to your point, right now, you really only have 2 people identified in the diabetes category that are enrolled, but you have a fair amount in hypertension. So obviously, ideally, we would keep those individuals in hypertension out of the diabetic realm and ideally move them away from the hypertension component as well. So, and I'll say I had gestational diabetes and my glucometer was not free. I had to pay for mine with strips. So I think there's just different programs for different individuals as well. Where to your point, this program, yes, the replacement costs, but the initial one is free, and that's not necessarily the case for all members. But again, it's ultimately up to the council if you want to maintain as is, discontinue, or expand.
Okay, so my suggestion is also that this is something that's free to the person who signs up for it. So I have pre-diabetes and I say, oh, there's a free program for me. I'll sign up for that. And 2 months down the road, you don't do anything else with it. We are still charged for that. Once they sign up, you're still charged for it if I'm not correct. Unless, can you get out of it? And is this per month? Is this per?
Per member per month. And yes, you are charged once they sign up, but we also get monthly notices from our partner at Livongo that tells us how many people have been identified, how many people are signed up, and the participation and engagement. So
I
we
just
get
wor-
monthly reports on that.
I'm sorry, I just worry about that you have a program that you give to people for free. They don't have no investment in it. I always believe that if you truly wants to get people to participate in the program, they have to have skin in the game. That's, it's a free program. So who cares if I don't listen to what they say? Who cares if I don't? It's free and I can choose to, whatever. But yet we're still paying for it, whether they show up to whatever counseling sessions or suggestions or whatever it is. That's the only reason why I.
Well, I agree in principle with that. I see both sides of the issue. I think I would still support putting it in there, but I would also ask for quarterly reports to see what the participation sign up is. And if we see people who have signed up and they're wasting city money, then we start sending messages out to departments saying your health plan will be affected and impacted by these non-participants costing the city thousands of dollars. So if you have signed up for these, you better start getting with the program because next year's program will look very different.
The way that we can charge the person an entrance fee, or that we can, I mean, I like to lead with a carrot because I think that's a lot better, but and can they get out if they at one point say, no, this sucks, I don't want to be here? Does it then stop at that point?
Correct. Yes.
Or
So
could we make a rule, for example, if they, I don't know how the program works, are they participating in meetings or counseling sessions or phone calls or whatever? And if they don't participate or don't turn in their results, whatever the whole system is, that they then, after so many months, we simply drop them.
So you cannot charge, so this falls into more of a preventative realm. So there is no charge that you can give to the member. And this is across the board. So every client that uses this program, the client pays for. And depends on what solution that they are eligible and sign up for is what they participate in. But so ultimately there's the diabetes, pre-diabetes, and cardiovascular. And they ultimately are helping. The idea behind them is that they're educating to drive behavior to change, to remove them from these conditions, because these conditions typically lead to higher cost or comorbidities and increased illnesses associated with all of these components. So it's viewed as getting members to participate, getting them engaged is going to result in those behaviors. And because we have that reporting, we can see if that is effective or not. And it'll also provide us with savings illustrations, similar to how the RX Smart Savings, that was Meritain doing that illustrative component for us, saying we should probably get rid of this. It's not saving the city any money. So they're very much engaged in wanting to maintain, reduce, but yet still increase outcomes for employees.
You can't get off of it if you don't do it. So maybe that comes from our HR side. It's going to go back to the employees and say, hey, wait a minute, you're signed up for this program. We don't see, you need to just resign out.
You can't do that individually. That's a HIPAA and PHI issue of telling someone that they no longer can participate, but you could as a whole discontinue the program. But we get reports of, because we won't know who's using it and not. We'll just say 5 people are on it. This is the engagement level that you have. And that's an unfortunate risk that is taken with some of these programs. But from a HIPAA PHI perspective, you won't be able to know exactly, and you can't tell one person you can't participate any longer.
I think HIPAA restricts our access to that information, so let's go ahead and call the question on, do we move forward with continuing Libongo or discontinuing it?
I say we continue because if someone's with hypertension, it just doesn't go away. And I don't visit a doctor, once every month, my participation level, I still have hypertension. So it's just one of those things that I think it'd be essential for the person to make sure they're taking care of it.
Mr.
I'm more of the preventative type. So if we give people an opportunity, and if we up it to the 120 to include the cardiovascular solution and the diabetic and the pre-diabetic, part of it is going to have to be educating the employees of this benefit. If we can catch things early with the biometric screening, get them on this plan. And if you look at the details, behavioral health, weight management, gentle nudge. I did have a question about the behavioral health. It has an asterisk. What kind of details do you have about the behavioral health aspect of the support?
So I can get you some more information, but ultimately, most illnesses impact mental and behavioral health, and there's so many different facets of it. And so what it does is it can identify if there's a mental component as far as that relationship with food or the relationship with coping mechanisms. They can refer internally to Aetna providers. That also is a benefit under the plan. So they can kind of help expand what is offered under the city's plan to help solve if there's underlying issues and concerns based on the situation. Because as most people find out, what your symptom is might have a different cause, right? And so behavioral health can potentially be a cause there.
Okay, so this is not a direct correlation to behavioral health equals 1 or 2 appointments with a professional counselor. It just would be a tie into, hey, these are your providers within your Aetna coverage. Is that correct?
Right, and how to use it and how to, I
Okay.
think it's a couple components, depending on what the situation is for the person. It can either refer them internally to their plans, to your plan's mechanics, or it can help them identify where they might be having behavioral health results from the symptoms and how it ties back into diabetes. So teaching the behavioral health mechanisms that result in the diabetic or hypertension or pre-diabetes symptoms.
Education aspect of weight management, behavioral health, not necessarily provider right then and there.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
With this aspect and with these tools, if a employee chooses to use them, it is well worth the $120 per month just to have someone there or education at your fingertips to know where to go and how to use their programs and the insurance that they have
Right.
and the premiums that they're paying.
Right.
I concur.
Yes. So we'll keep it. Is Chandra's vote on it? Because with this, as he's making reference to the diabetes aspect, some point or another, when you have certain illnesses, you don't really realize till you do blood workup and things and speak to what's going on, that you may be depressed from the issue, dealing with high blood pressure and stuff, and heart rates and things that change and you don't realize it. This is a preventative case that you're looking at here, and I think it would be in the best interest of the employees.
Okay, so we have 4 in favor and 1 against. Okay, that passes. So we'll move on to the next decision point.
So the next is the medical provisions themselves. So just a little history. Historically, the plan was what was referred to as grandfathered, and a few years ago, we did a major overhaul and modernized the plan into ACA or Affordable Care Act standards. And so we did that 2 years ago. And last year we did a little bit of cleanup. And so when we initially met, we were not proposing any major changes to the plan provisions. Though it was asked at the workshop by the mayor, what the impact would be to reduce the out of pocket. So my recommendation is to maintain as is, but the ask was to research what that impact would be. So just as a refresher, the current out of pocket is $4,500 for an individual or $13,500 for a family. And we looked at what the impact to the city would be to reduce that to $3,000 for an individual and $9,000 for a family.
It'd pay for itself.
So I'm not sure what we're looking at. So if we were to reduce the out of pocket, it would cost the city an additional $8,000 is what you're saying?
Yeah, so I don't know. So this was something I sent, it's kind of sidelined from the workshop. So just to kind of elaborate on it, this last year, if you recall or were able to look at it, the plan is performing very well, meaning employees are healthy. There was only, let me find my notes of what, I just had it up and I lost it here. Sorry, let me find it here. There were only, so the way we calculate this from an estimate, because every year can be very volatile, but because of the small enrollments. I'm sorry, let me find the number of people. So nobody has hit your stop loss this year. So when we looked at this, there's only been 5 members that have hit the 3,000 threshold. So if you take in consideration those 5 members and what amount in claims that they had over 3,000 but less than 45, that's where the $7,600 comes from. So that's a very moving target, and that's not guaranteed, because if you had a year where 10 people were in that threshold, you're increasing your exposure, $1,500 per individual is what that increased exposure is. Whether or not they have those claims, that is very difficult to give you a guaranteed amount every single year, right? Because that's the volatile number.
Currently, it's 4,500 and 13,500 per family.
Correct.
And your recommendation is to be better?
I think to maintain, but by all means, I know employees would probably love a reduction. It reduces their exposure. Though I would think that if you are looking at this increased exposure point for the city, and if that would result in increased employee deduction, in conversations that I've had with Ellen and Melissa and Tricia, and by all means, please clarify, Ellen, I know you've been talking with employees pretty significantly. I don't know if they would rather pay more per month to have this reduction than just have that, because that number isn't a guarantee for them where the amount out of their paycheck is.
I really don't have a for sure on that at this time. The employees seem to be very happy with the cost and understand that the cost that the city expects of the employees is not near as much as what most other places do. And most of them seem to understand that there's likely to be increases in the future.
So,
But that's all I have right now.
so the question is to keep it the same or change it. And okay, I say keep it. Keep it. Mrs. Clark?
Go ahead and keep it.
Keep it. Okay. All right. Decision point made. Keep it.
Perfect.
Moving on to adult dental plan.
So this one currently, so last year we did a pretty big enhancement to dental. Dental is a great benefit employees love, and it's relatively low cost for that impact. And so that was something that was asked about vocally, is increasing that annual maximum. And so when we looked at this with the workshop, because of the relatively low cost increase for a big win, when we talked, the council preference was to increase the annual maximum to $2,500 annually.
Is there agreement to stay with 3C? Increase annual to 2,500?
You don't get much for $1,500. And as far as talking about preventative and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is just as important as some of the other things.
Yeah, no,
If you don't have good teeth, you're in trouble.
all right, so we're good with 3C. Moving on to adult vision plan provisions. It says just maintain, so just maintain. Okay, stop loss insurance renewal.
So there's three main components within your medical plan. You've got your administrative costs, which is the Meritain. That was the 3% increase, though, with the provisions that we're changing, it'll actually be a reduction. The second fixed cost is your stop loss. So that's your insurance that pays for those high claimants should they occur. And that we actually, because the performance of the plan, we were able to get a reduction in fixed costs. So about $3,000 annually in fixed costs. So that's your guaranteed insurance cost. Though claims costs are expected to go up 3%. This is truly due to inflation and cost of care, and it's still significantly below trend. Medical trend is about 8 to 12%. So this is truly just a slight increase to the expected claims of that 3%. And again, that's only if those claims actually occur. So a very favorable renewal with stop loss.
So the decision is to renew with who we have.
Correct.
Any objection? Hearing none. Accepted.
Perfect.
Risk fees.
Yeah, so risk is paid. We bill directly to the city through Meritain. And we have not increased our fees for a number of years. And that was prior to my partnership. The city's worked with risk for a number of years. I came in at a time where that relationship was a bit damaged. And so I've worked over the last few years to rebuild that relationship. Feel very strongly that we've done so and turn the ship around, so to speak. And due to inflation, increased costs to do business, we are proposing a 10% increase, but doing so over the next 2 years. So 5% for 2023, 5% for 2024, which for 2023 would equal $90 additional cost per month, and then another $94 for 2024.
And that is total, not per employee.
No, correct, total. Total.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't need-
Accept.
And then Mutual of Omaha, these are going to be what we refer to as your ancillary coverages. So your short-term disability, long-term disability, group life and accidental death and dismemberment, which those are all paid for by the employee or by the city. And then you have the voluntary life and accidental death and dismemberment. There was no rate adjustment or increase proposed for the renewal, and your next renewal would be July in 2025.
Maintain or accept 7, 8, 9, correct?
And then I think the last big one would be from an employee deduction. So just to be mindful, last year we did increase employees' contributions $10 for the employee only and $20 for the family. So obviously there's variations in here if you have something, another idea or suggestion that you would like to propose. Excuse me, but these are a few options. So option one would be to have no change to deductions. There's been if you wanted to do a straight percentage increase based on what the total increase. So with all these changes that you've accepted, it would be about a 2% increase to the city or the total expenditure. So if you wanted to match that increase and give employees a 2% increase, it would be a slight uptick, very, very nominal, but it still is matching that percentage. If you wanted to offset, since there was a number of years prior to last year that you had not done increases, 5% still below, inflation, with a slight tick, or if you wanted to do a flat dollar amount of $5 and $10. I just know that when we had some discussions that because the increase hadn't been passed to employees for a number of years, there was some interest there. I obviously default to the council from a budgetary standpoint. Employees, and I always love to see a rate pass, but I also understand that if you don't take some now while things are good, then you don't want to do a significant jump when there's a more difficult year. So I'll pause there for any questions or commentary around employee deductions.
So the difference between 10A and B, the employee deduction would go from 33.08 to 33.74, or approximately 68 cents more a month or pay period.
Per pay period.
So that would be 68 would be $1.30 something a month. Looking at employees in the room.
Trying to make it big enough, but also so you can see everything here, sorry.
We gave some nice raises to everybody. So
Yeah.
I would think that $1 times what, that's 50 something dollars a year, am I correct?
So $1.30 times 12 would be
5%.
less than $20 a year.
Yep, so 1760 employee, 16 for the employee, and then 5720 for a family.
26 times. Pay period.
No, it's the whole month. It's 64 cents increase a pay period time, or 68 cents a pay period, or $1.
26 times 26 pay period, right? So over a year, you're talking about.
26 times 68 cents. That would be the 1716.
Logical thing would actually be to assist with the inflation, but with the inflation, we've all been hit with the rising cost of everything, right?
Mhm.
So if this is one thing that the city can do, is to have no change.
Yep.
Or
Or you could, since you're enhancing the dental, 2% I think would be very reasonable. It's very nominal. And that's an overall, and that's a very easy story to tell that overall the city is having a 2% increase in estimated costs. We're enhancing dental, slight increase from a stability standpoint.
Still pay with the amount of extra money that we've been giving everybody. I don't think the 5% would be that bad either.
Well, I would think it'd be better to go with the 2% rather than next year going with a 4% because prices have jumped up. I'm looking at it.
I can go with you.
2%?
I think that's
Okay, 2%.
Okay, that was the last item. Thank you very much. Now it's getting to the end of the time. Any questions for me?
This is Chandra, and I want to thank you for your time. I wasn't here for your total presentation, but I like the fact that you've gone through this with us line by line.
Thank you very much, and you're very welcome.
Yes, it's a very difficult system to navigate, and I appreciate that we have someone like you as an expert to guide us in making decisions and give us options that allow us to take into consideration affordability for our employees and also for the city.
Absolutely. And I appreciate being able to do that as well.
All right, thank you, Amy. Have a good night.
Thank you, you as well.
With that, we are at council comments. And I'll start with Mrs. Welch. We'll just kind of go down. I guess the clerk too.
Go for it.
All right, Mrs. Welch.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that opportunity. Yeah, just think about what's going on out there. School is just about out. Going to have a lot of youngsters running free out there. Kind of encourage everybody to help be the village to raise these kids. If you see something that's not right, say something. Doesn't have to be the Karen or the whatever doing it. It could be done very nicely. And just kind of try to get them in the right direction. I heard some comments about the police having a nice little educational blurb on their Facebook about driving four-wheelers and other, and some people were kind of upset about that. And I don't understand that, because the rules are in place to make sure that we are safe, and we have expanded our permission for them to be on the road if they are properly insured and tagged and driver's license and all that stuff. So we have given more liberty to them doing that. Yet tonight, I still see people out there driving on the side of the road. What I think a lot of people did not understand is that when you're out there and you encounter a police officer, it makes a lot of difference whether you go, I'm not going to listen to you what you say, and this is a bunch of BS because I should be allowed to do this. Instead, you do it nicely, and most likely, if you're following other common sense rules, you will not get a ticket. You might be told this is not the place to do it or something like that. They are trying to educate our young drivers especially, but also some of the adults out there. So please be safe out there. Follow the rules of the road, and we can avoid any serious issues. So with that, I'll yield.
Thank you. Mr. Keller?
I'd have to echo Councilwoman Walsh's comments about the ATVs, UTVs, whatever you want to call them, increased traffic. It is exciting with the warm traffic or the warmer weather, but the increase of risk that is also out there with those vehicles, even with them properly being ridden on the road, it is scary. Seeing youth riding them almost carelessly. So my caution is for the adults to step up and to train and to educate, and for the youth to watch out. I don't really believe in coincidences, and it's really sad that in our area in Fairbanks, we've already lost a youth to an ATV accident. That's one too many. So that's something that we still need to work on. And yeah, we as a city, we passed an ordinance allowing the vehicles, the recreational vehicles on the roads, and yet we're being hounded of why are we getting tickets? Why are we getting pulled over? It's like, well, if you did that anywhere else, almost in Alaska, it'd be a little bit bigger of an issue. But no, I want to applaud the police force here of trying to educate and putting the best foot forward there. And it's kind of like beating a dead horse sometimes. trying to educate. So with the warmer weather and the excitement, just continue to look out for your neighbors. And be safe with the upcoming hunting and fishing season. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Cromer.
I have no comments.
Mrs. Clack, I'm sorry, I was taking notes and tuned out. Sorry. Okay, are you saying you're passing? Okay, all right. Just want to thank everyone for your participation tonight, especially our employees who love to spend their Monday evenings with us. So I really know that it makes for a very long day, and I thank you for that. Again, just a reminder and invite to the police memorial that's going to be held here May 19th at 11 a.m. at the Gabrich and Trooper, somebody else's name, sorry. The police memorial on Dochi, how about that? And then also, in honor of those who have passed, have a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend that will be coming up in a couple of weeks. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cromer, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Sandra? Oh, Scott Johnson. I knew it was.